In the last few episodes, we have been discussing classic short stories from India in different languages, and we took help of books published by HarperCollins, the series being edited by Minnie Krishnan, and so far we discussed Malayalam stories and Kannada stories. Today, and this is the last one of the series, we have got Odia classic short stories. The title of the book is Maguni's Bullock Cart and Other Classic Odia Stories. Now, if you are not familiar with the Odia literature, I would recommend you to visit the website or read my Substack newsletter on the subject. And in case you're not subscribed already, I would recommend you to do that. I have been writing about Indian literature, different kinds of books that you can read to understand literature. And that's where I discussed one of the stories that you'll find in the book. In fact, this is not just the first story in this book. This is also the first short story ever published in modern times in Odia language. The short story is called Rebati, and it was written by Fakir Mohan Senapati in 1898. So 1898 was the year when the first modern Odia short story came out. And without much of a delay, let me tell you about this particular story. We'll also discuss briefly some of the other stories, but first of all, let me tell you about the story, what happens in it. So it is late 1800s, and we are in one of the small villages in Cuttack district in Odisha. And at one end of that village, there is Shyam Bandhu Mohanty's house. He was a kind of an accountant for the zamindar, for the landlord there. So he was responsible for collecting taxes and maintaining accounts for the landlord. He made very small amount, but that was enough for him to survive and take care of his family. Who all are there in his family? Well, his mother, his wife, and his daughter, and the daughter is called Rebati. Then there is another important character in this story, Vasudev, who's the school teacher, and he's come to the village, and from that time onwards, he's been very close to Shyam Bandhu. And we learn something interesting in this short story, that we are told that for two reasons that Shyam Bandhu grew fond of the teacher Vasudev. One was that Vasudev was a true gentleman, he was a nice person, and second, that the two belonged to the same caste. So you see the caste dynamics, how that worked out in the 19th century India, and in fact it still works out in many parts of India. So over time, this bond of affection, this friendship, that grew between these two men, and frequently the teacher would visit Shyam Bandhu's house and would spend a lot of time with the family. And even Rebati, she was quite fond of the teacher. So one of those days when he was visiting Shyam Bandhu's house, Vasudev, he told Shyam Bandhu that there's a school in Cuttack where girls can also study, so it might be a good idea for Rebati to pursue her studies. Rebati was already keen about this idea. She really wanted to study, and she got excited. She started jumping. She was happy, her parents were happy, but the grandmother, Shyam Bandhu's mother, she was not very happy about it. She never liked this idea of women going to school and all those things. She preferred that old conservative ways in which women were raised and then they were married off, and that was their life. But obviously, Rebti didn't care about it. At the same time, there was some indication that the family was thinking about the idea of marrying this little girl, Rebti, to the teacher, to Vasudev. And when Rebti found out about this, she started blushing and smiling, and also got a little awkward about the prospects of spending time with him or meeting him. So those were the happy times that we see in the story. And that's the end of happy times. Then come the bad times. It was the turn of the cholera epidemic, and it just spread throughout the village, throughout the region. Shyambandhu also got down with cholera, and as you know, the medical facilities were nothing like we have today. So most people who got that disease, they could not survive. And that same thing happened with Shyambandhu. And when he knew he was going to die, he spoke with Vasudev and he asked him to look after his family when he's gone. And those were his final words, after which he dies. And then another painful thing we learn after his death is that people are not being supportive of his funeral arrangements, of cremation process, because they think that he's not from the same caste. So there's a lack of support there. Also, Shyambandhu used to work for that landlord, as I told you. That person was really corrupt, and now he was taking advantage of these tragic circumstances, and he tried to grab all the land, cattle, all the household items by just fraudulently claiming that Shyambandhu owed him money and all those things. So for family, the times just, they kept getting worse and worse with time. At the same time, Vasudev was visiting the family every evening and spending time with them. But of course, they were in pain. Rebti was crying all the time. But at least Vasudev was there, so that was some comfort. But what happens is, one day he goes to some other place out of the village, and then he never returns. In fact, the news of his death comes. That was really devastating for Rebti. And this time she does not cry. She lays there without a whine or a whimper. She's stone cold there. She's numb. She can't do anything. She's just helpless on the floor. So the grandmother was there, and they didn't have any resources rather, to survive. And in the next few days, the grandmother tries to sell a few things and tries to make some money so that they could get some food. But none of it works. And in the end, we see that even Rebti, she cannot survive. So the tale ends there with pretty much everyone in the family dies, and that's the end. And it sends such a powerful message of how difficult it can be if we don't send kids to school, if the education is not there, if the employment opportunities are not there, if women are not allowed to work, what can happen once the man is gone. So all those things that were going on at that time in Odisha, and it really spread the message. This particular story and a lot of other stories that got inspired from this, they talked about this idea about the plight of women, and that helps in spreading the message. That really brought a lot of change. A lot of change is still needed, but I think it was an important starting point. So, this was one story from the book, the first, as I said. There are many more stories, some on different themes, some on similar themes, as I just described, where there is a lot of um, tragic scenarios. There is a portrayal of social taboos and evils and different kinds of practices. These are the stories of despair as well as hope. So, a range of emotions are covered in these short stories. For example, another story by the same author, Fakir Mohan Senapati, it's called Patent Medicine. It's quite a funny one where a husband is trying to have the fun of his life and he's trying to just go after women or drinks or smoking secretly behind his wife's back, and the wife somehow finds out. And all those events leading up to that moment are also quite funny and hilarious, how all that happens. But once she does, she beats him with a broom, and that is where the title of the book comes of the story comes from. Patent medicine. The patent is, in this case, is the broom, which is said that men, you need to treat them with broom, you need to beat them with broom, otherwise they don't listen to you. So that's the kind of message we get. And as I said, there are themes of tragedy, pain. One such short story is called The Witch, where once again we go into the villages of Odisha, and in one of those villages, a woman is seen as a witch. I don't know if any of you have seen or been close to rural India, but it has happened a lot of times, frequently, even in recent times. I have seen it where a woman or many women were considered witches, and people actually believed that they were witches. They turned witches at night or something or the other, those kind of superstitions. And in this story also, this woman is believed to be a witch, and people are blaming her for all the ills, for all the mishappenings that are happening there, all the tragedies that are taking place. Somebody dies, this woman gets beaten because apparently she has done something. So that really tells you the kind of life these women have seen who have been labeled as witches, which is such a silly thing if we see from the modern lenses. And then eventually what happens in this story is even her own family disowns her, and that's when she leaves the house. But that final scene itself, when she's shown away from the village and just wondering about what just happened, where no one really likes her, no one. Her own family hates her, not just hates her, even not just, it's far worse than that. It's not like they don't just love her, they don't just like her, or they just hate her. It's way beyond that. They consider her evil. They genuinely think she is a witch and she is going to probably kill them or bring misfortune to them. And even during the story, we find certain instances where people are throwing ropes in front of her. That was another kind of superstition, where that they believed that these specific ropes, those witches could not cross those ropes, and all those kind of things. But as I said, it is a tragedy. And a similar story is called The Tiger, where we see the tragedy being faced by a housewife, where she's being constantly abused and ridiculed by her husband. And from the story, we find that this man is constantly harassing his wife, and she's suffering throughout. He's shaming her in front of friends and family members and servants. And eventually, she's just sitting there and wondering about this thing that she told her children, or her children were discussing these matters about tigers, whether they kill people or not. So, this sentence that came up at one point was that tigers, they don't kill people, they rip their hearts apart and they suck their blood. And then she thought about her husband, and felt the same thing. It's not that he's killing her, it's far worse. He's breaking her heart. He's just sucking the life out of her. And that, if you think that's sometimes it's even worse than death, the miserable life, day after day, where you have to suffer. So that's the story. Then, of course, the title story, which is Maguni's Bullock cart. There's a character who's he has his bullock cart, two bullocks, and he rides and carries off passengers from the station to different parts of the town. And he's a really hardworking guy, and life goes on like that for him until one day when technology changes and buses arrive, and suddenly people don't need these carts anymore. They are taking buses. So his business that dries up. He doesn't have money. He cannot feed himself or the animals that he has with him. And slowly his diet goes down. Earlier he was having rice with something else, then it comes down to rice, then it's not even cooked rice, it's just watered rice. Then slowly he gets to water. Eventually it's not even that. He's fasting, slowly starves himself to death, and the animals die too. That's where the story ends. It makes you question so many things. What happens around us? We are so excited about moving on to new technologies, but do we realize what it is doing to some of the people around us, how it is shaping their lives, how it is affecting them? So that's the powerful message I think we find in this story. So I'm sure when you read the book, you're really going to enjoy these stories. Most of them will touch you deeply. As I said, there's a lot of pain. There's a beautiful depiction of human emotions in most of the stories. You will be able to relate, even though the settings might seem a bit distant to you, because I'm sure most of you don't live in country. You have not seen the kind of poverty that these characters, these people in the late 19th century or early 20th century India, they were seeing. But at some level, at a human level, it really touches you, makes you think about all the things that you probably ignore in your normal life. And that should be the point of literature, isn't it? That we empathize with things, we empathize with people, and we become more sensitive to the suffering of others. We become more sensitive to general human condition. And that's what these short stories will do. So once again, thank you very much for listening. Now that we have covered a number of short stories from different languages across India, we'll move on to another book and discuss something new this time. So stay in touch, keep following, and Let's read more books together. Let's explore more studies, explore more literature. Thank you very much.